tap opened in 2019 and the brewery started work in like the autumn of 2019. All gone great, the first opening. And then we got to like the December and I had one random Friday night where I think I worked from 4 till 10 o'clock and I think we took 70 quid.
Oh, no.
And I was like, what have I done? Like I've got a 2-year-old daughter at home and I've got a son due in the May. I'm like, why have we opened a tap room on a farm in Rivington?
If I was to say to you craft beer and tap room, Paul, you're probably thinking, industrial estate, Chris, but why does it have to be this way? Well, don't worry, Paul, because frankly, it doesn't, because we're here at Rivington Brewing in Lancashire, where we'll be talking with the founder, Ben, and his brewery manager, Jack, to talk about how they've turned a working farm into a craft beer haven for beer lovers.
And also the local community.
Yeah, so let's go take a look. Yay! So Ben, thanks for having us down.
No problem.
First and foremost, I mean, what a lovely site you've got here.
Yeah.
Just tell us the Rivington story. How did we end up here?
Yeah, for sure. So this used to be a barn for haylage and stuff initially, so like before we started doing the tap room and things. So we're based on a working farm. So the whole Rivington story started from, I'd say most UK brewers sort of 12, 15 years ago was home brewing. So I went and studied in America, in North Carolina, my second year of uni, so that would have been almost 20 years ago now. Drank terrible beer the whole time, had a great time in America though, and then I went back to see a friend of mine who lived in a town called Asheville in North Carolina, and I wasn't really into beer, but we landed, and he took me straight to a brew pub, which was Wicked Weed, who at the time were independent, and I think the only beer of the trip I remember drinking was like a watermelon sour or watermelon saison. I was like, this is incredible. And then went downstairs and there was more independent beer. And then we went up the street and there was a bit more independent beer. There was another brewery. And then we went to see a gig and there was like 6 lines of independent beer. Then we went to a pizza place after and there was 4 lines. I was like, this is incredible. It can't get any better.
It's where it all starts,
Yeah.
I think, for a lot of brewers we speak to.
Definitely. But the pinnacle of it was the Saturdays. Like, right, we're going tubing. So there's this river in Asheville called the Brewers. So you sit on these tubes, float down the river, have a few cans, and it finishes at a brewery tap room. I was like, I'm done. This is it. I need to be in beer somehow.
So that's basically like a theme park.
Yeah, exactly.
But a natural version of it.
Yeah. So I kind of, when I first came back from the holiday, I was like, right, I want to start importing the beers I've just had in Asheville. And quite quickly, the rules and regulations and the amount of money I'd need to import the beer, I was like, that's definitely not going to happen. So instead we looked at home brewing. And Mick, who I own the brewery with, he'd just been to a wedding with their own home brew, and he just got married and they'd set a date. He was like, well, why don't we home brew for the wedding? So we got John Palmer's How to Brew book, read that front to back.
So you never brewed at this point?
No, never brewed. So
wow, but you committed to this wedding?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, brave man.
Yeah. So got the plastic bucket kit, read John Palmer's How to Brew, too nervous to start, and they're like, right, let's just go for it. So we tried to brew a Sierra Nevada pale clone with the wrong hops. It came out at like 4.5%. So oh, it's quite interesting. Why does that not come out at 5.4, I think, is Sierra Nevada?
Right.
So then from there, we're like, right, let's just go for it. So carried on brewing on this kit, and then eventually we had the home brew ready for the wedding. I mean, I'll be fair to our friends, most of them gave us pretty terrible feedback initially, like, this is horrible. I was like...
Valuable but honest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but then a few were like, oh, it's really good. So okay, we'll do a bit more. Then my cousin got married the next year, so we had some home brew for that, and then like, right, people seem to like it, which looking back, it was absolutely awful.
Plus you got a captive audience, right?
Yeah, exactly. A free beer
like, there's your feedback. That's good.
So we bought a 200-litre commercial kit, which we could basically do 4 casks at a time. So again, we started brewing this commercial one, commercial in very loose terms. I think there's home brewers in America that have bigger setups than we had at the time. And we delivered the casks to like one venue, basically across the reservoir, one in Bolton, and then we'd have to sell the other 2. And we're like, this is pretty good, brewing once a week at the weekend, having these beers go out in cask and seeing people start to drink your beer. And it's from that point that we quite quickly realised, right, it's a lot of work for 4 casks. So we had the big upgrade to 400 litres instead. So we can now do 9 casks instead.
Double the amount.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it was a sort of pretty pivotal learning time for us as well, because we made loads of mistakes. We had loads of infected beer, we had yeast in it way too much. And if I'm honest, I was like, at that time, we've registered as a brewery 10 years this December, so we put our first commercial beers out pretty much 9 years to this week, I think. 8-9 years ago, there's a lot of rubbish beer in the market, and we could sort of get away with it. I think now you look at the market, it's so difficult if you're a new brewery starting to like really have a good quality product straight away.
What was your first beer?
So actually before the cask, our first beers, we'd sold some of our hand-bottled homebrew. So it was Bodacious, which was a golden ale.
Right.
Radical, which was a saison, and we did that with like 3 different dry hops, and one of the bottles was a massive gusher, so it was clearly infected. But yeah, we sold them at a local like farmers market sort of thing. Yeah, it's from there, I think, probably the first, I'd say real like modern beer direction we wanted to go was when we first did Fog, which was 7 years ago now. So we'd seen Magic Rock and Cloudwater do these hazy IPAs and hazy pales, like, oh, we want to do that, and we brewed Never Known Fog like it, and we've kept the recipe 95% the same from that till now.
So I think we were talking on the way up, weren't we? It's like, was Fog at the OG beer?
OG
for you,
and Beach House. So Beach House, our cask beer.
Yeah.
We were drinking
on cask.
Yeah.
We're drinking Sonoma, and we're like, we need a cask beer that's 3.8%, that's really good. And so we're like, right, let's work on this. I think this was one of the first sort of more modern cask beers we did as well. Because we did like a bitter before that and a golden ale, but to be honest, we didn't even really drink those as styles. We just thought we have to brew this for the local market. And they weren't great representations of the styles, whereas we were drinking like, the first Cloudwater V's, and we were drinking Sonoma and beers like
Big
that.
shoes.
Yeah, and they were like, this is sort of the direction that we want to go to instead.
So the site that we're on now, when did that come into play?
Yeah.
And, I mean, how have you managed to kind of grow it out?
I mean, first and foremost, it's not on an industrial estate, so
no, it's very rare.
That's that cliche destroyed immediately.
Yeah.
So yeah, why the farm?
So Mick owned the brewery with, he's the farmer on site as well. And to be honest, having the tap room here was his idea. So it was 2 things. His parents were retiring and they had a dairy farm, and Mick was moving it to beef, but like sort of small batch. So we had buildings and space. He basically had 2 options. It was either have a really big farm, which would have been like 300 or 400 head of cattle, to actually make money off of farming. And he didn't want to go down that route from like a animal welfare point of view, from usage of the space. So he was like, well, I want to sort of do smaller scale farming, a lot smaller herd of cattle, keep them for longer, and instead we can use the space for a brewery. The tap room as well, I was just sort of following on from when I'd eventually left my job. That was the Easter, and I was like, do you know what, let's just go and open a tap room in an industrial estate in Chorley. Like, I don't want to wait anymore. And he was like, no, just wait, it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
And the original tap room there had 2 horses in it. The horses are fine. They moved to some other stables elsewhere in the area.
They work in another brewery now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Shire horses down there. And we converted initially this area in here. So the tap room opened November 2019. So it's coming up to its 5th birthday. Yeah. So we opened with no heating, seating for about 40 people. And the outside area there was the car park. And we're like, this will be more than enough. And probably for the first few months it was. But part of opening that and funding that, we'd got a EU rural diversification grant to sort of funding, well, while we're still in the EU, to sort of...
Never heard of them.
Yeah, so...
Never heard of them.
No.
What did they ever do for us?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we got funding for that, which sort of helped fund the brewery, the renovation of the building, and the tap room as well. We had tap open in 2019, and the brewery started work in like the autumn of 2019. All gone great, the first opening. Thought we were really busy, which in hindsight, again, we weren't. And then we got to like the December, and I had one random Friday night where I think I worked from 4 till 10 o'clock, and I think we took 70 quid.
Oh, no.
And I was like, what have I done? Like, I've got a 2-year-old daughter at home, and I've got a son due in the May. I'm like, why have we opened a tap room on a farm in Rivington? Like, we should have just gone into a town centre somewhere. But sort of got through that, and the Christmas was pretty good. And then January 2020, the guy building our brewery rang us to say he'd gone to administration. Oh. I was like, oh. So then went to administrator, and if you've ever dealt with administrators before, it's just hell. They basically spend a few months not really giving you any commitment whatsoever, justifying their extortionate fees. And then eventually after 3-4 months, they'll agree to like release certain amounts of stock or whatever. So released the tanks for us, agreed for the second party to start finishing them. And the week of this, I was working the tap room on the Friday and a guy came in saying, you need to close the tap tomorrow because of COVID. It's just been on the news. So again, I was like, oh, flip, fuck. So closed the tap room, and so this was the first week in April, and we just hired our first full-time employee, so we couldn't furlough them either. So I was on the phone to the guy about the tanks the following week. He's like, look, I don't have anyone in work, so I don't know what we're doing, sort of thing. I was like, okay, fine. Had to wait that bit out, and then just to sort of get through it, we basically had to do crowlers, hand-fill cans, so purge the cans, bought a crowler machine, doing like 200 cans a day. Which is nuts now when you see the canning line, and 200 cans can do about 15 minutes or something.
I think all pubs, all breweries, everyone just had to just
think of something.
What do we do? Just
we were hand filling like Fontaflora kegs here. I was like, this is pretty surreal. Like, my favourite breweries were like doing crowlers of that and delivering them to Adlington and Chorley and stuff.
Oh man!
The breweries eventually finished, I think, the week before the lockdown eased. So we just started brewing straight away. Just got a load of ingredients in and just went for it. And then when the pubs reopened, after all the months of glorious sunshine, it was absolutely peeing it down here. So everyone was just outside, under trees, or there was like guys just sat at a table drinking, and the pint glass was just filling up with rain. They were just so happy to be outside, they couldn't care less. So we're like, oh. So then people started coming down, we're like, okay, maybe there's something in this. So we built a couple of shelters. Basically had to write off the outside car park as now like an outdoor space. And then went from there, built up a load of keg and cask stock, and then second lockdown hit. So we had to start then. We had, at the time, like 40 or 50 grand of stock in the cold store that we couldn't sell.
Oh, man.
So went to a farm and got some milk bottles so we could do cask and milk bottles for a while. And then we're like, right, we're going to have to contract can. And for anyone that has or does contract can, it's incredibly expensive and pretty unreliable and quite frustrating. I mean, there might be some really good contract canning ones, but our experience with certain ones, wasn't brilliant. And it was like 50p a can to fill the can before you'd even put any beer in it, any labels, any lids, anything.
Wow,
so
okay.
it basically just about sort of broke even by the time
That's your margins gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is so we just did that, and then we got to the February of 2022. So I've gone off a massive tangent to the Rivvy story here, but I was like, we basically just bought then we're like, right, we'll borrow some more money for wherever we can get it, and then we've got a 2-head canning line to get us through that. So that's what sort of brought us here to the site. This we extended into, I think this was end of 2022, and then we put heating in as well because we realised it's very cold up here in winter in a barn. Then we built 2 outside shelters as well, and then the big sort of outside area with a load of tables. And then that's sort of been it. When we started with like rotating food traders, and then we built a hut for a permanent one. And then we had bunching and bun joiners, and now we have sort of 3 permanent food traders, run 1 in the week and then 3 at the weekend.
Having got the full Rivvy backstory, we headed into the Brewers Yard to check out the setup and find out more about Rivington's beer.
So we're here with Jack. You're the brewery manager here at Rivington.
Yep.
And we're in the forecourt here outside your brilliant little brewery.
This is us,
Yeah. So where do you fit into this? So what's your roles and responsibilities?
Day to day in the brewery, whether that's brewing, packaging, cellaring.
Yep.
I'd like to be cellaring most of the time. That's definitely the bit that interests me the most. Outside of that, it's festivals, tap takeovers. This is the first year we've done a lot of foreign festivals, so we spent a lot of time in Europe, which has been really cool.
Nice perk of the job.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
very jealous actually about some of the names we've heard.
Yeah. So we've slightly grown our export. It's still, it's not crazy, but it's a nice number, and it gets us in a lot of nice places for sure.
Lovely. So tell us a little bit about the setup. Obviously, from here, you've packed a lot into a very small space.
Packed a lot into a very small space. We're on a pure weld kit. Currently got 8 FVs and 2 CTs. We're just about to go for a small expansion, which is going to add 2 larger FVs.
You say small.
Yeah.
It might be small to you, but it doubles the capacity of this place quite easily, right?
Yeah, so small in terms of the amount more beer we'll be making, but space-wise, really big. Really, really big. We're going to move all of our packaging, etc., into the back barn. If anyone's been with us before, they'll have seen the back barn, and it's always the first thing people ask is, when are you going in? When are you going in? When are you going in? And yeah, we finally hit that point now where we can't really function in that space anymore.
We were having a chat earlier, and you said one of the glaring gaps in your portfolio is a lager, or a constant lager.
Yeah.
So I think, as I understand it, with the expansion, that's going to be like a core focus for you.
100%. So 2 of the tanks that are going in, one will just be dedicated to lager. We've not focused in on a particular style of lager yet, so we're gonna try a few, see what we think's good.
Do you know where your heads are at the moment? Is there any particular way you want to go?
We're going to start with a New Zealand Pils.
Oh, okay.
Which we've had a crack at before, and it was okay. It was fine. But George is really putting his head to this one. George takes care of our technical side and a lot of recipe development.
George, by the way, is apparently the beer guru, the MVP at Rivington in terms of beer ingenuity.
Yeah, we'd definitely like to do some dark lagers towards the winter, I think.
Oh yes, Dunkels.
Yeah, for sure. So that's going to be something to think about.
Lovely.
Again. But yeah, really excited. This lager's the one that all brewers want to nail.
Yeah, it's a cliche, isn't it? But it's just there's a
really
reason for it. There's nowhere to hide.
It's really hard. It's really hard. We've not been happy with one as of yet. So it's kind of under our skin a bit.
That's all about the honesty. You know, you keep saying, "No, I don't think we're there yet," or "We haven't quite nailed that," and you're probably doing yourself a massive disservice because I know you're all just desperate to do the best you possibly can.
Yeah.
But that's really refreshing to hear, right? Because it just means you're constantly trying to evolve, try new things, and you know.
It's the same with our DDH and hazy beers. There's no part of us that thinks we've got that nailed. I think we're a lot better than we were, and we're a lot more consistent, but yeah, they can still step on, and there's always tweaks.
Tell us a little bit about some of the other stuff that you're brewing. Like we're talking to George, who's working away in the back, and he was saying that he's really happy with the stouts at the moment. He thinks the stouts are singing, so to speak. So
stouts have been a massive work in progress for us. The core stout is dilated particles, which is our coffee stout, 5%. A lot of work's gone into that, but then really trying to get good at imperial stouts. It's been a big project. We collabed a lot with people for 2 years, and we always felt like people weren't giving us much, and we were just missing tricks.
Were you not asking the right questions, or were they being a little bit more guarded?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. So you'd get a grist and we'd think, yeah, this is definitely the one, this is the malt bill, and it wasn't. And then some guys were saying you've got to boil for this long, and but we got there in the end. This is the happiest we've been. I'm not saying by any means that we're there, but the most recent stout, a collab with Arpus and Commonwealth, so it made our first US collab, which was a real big deal for us. And a real authentic one. So Ben met the guys last year in Poland at Beer Geek Madness, and then we managed to get them over. And of course they'll be at Farm Trip again this year. So we've made a real relationship with Commonwealth, and we've met Arpus loads of times now. So it was a real authentic collab, and they were all here, and we had a proper day out, and
awesome.
We're really happy with the beer.
So yeah, I'm really glad things are working out for you and you're expanding.
Yeah.
And talking about evolution, looking back maybe a little bit, but we've got a sneak peek of some barrels out the back.
Yeah.
I mean, they look a little bit like wine barrels or maybe spirit barrels.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share there?
Yeah, so barrel project started in December. It's always been spoken about here. We've just never really had the time or the knowledge, to be honest, between myself, Ben, and the others. Like it's something we're all interested in, but George has very much brought that with him.
Super George, yeah.
The guy's home brewing mixed firm at home, and he's just he just lives and breathes beer. So it's everyone's project, but it's very much George's project.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously some of the stouts have gone in. It's a saison somewhere, and a couple of others. That's going to just stick as a winter project for us in January, when we're a little bit quieter, get some barrels filled up, have some fun with it.
We decided to finish up our tour in the tap room with Ben to talk a little bit more about beer and branding. And when Phil came and did the Hot Ball Meet the Brewers session, he mentioned something about, I think, your East Coast and your West Coast beers, the way you name them. Your West Coast beers have a kind of West Coast hip hop
Yeah.
reference in
Yeah.
them, and then your East Coast beers have something. Is it like a Sopranos reference?
Yeah.
Or gangster?
To be honest, yeah, the West Coast was always tries to like West Coast hip hop, but then the last one did a Blink 182 lyric, so we've kind of butchered that one now as well. But then to be honest, it is absolute rhyme it's just basically what we've watched, listened to, or done at that time. So I think I'm looking like the beers that are coming out start of July. We've got The Guy Was Interior Decorator, which is Sopranos reference from Pine Barren.
Right.
We have Never Known Fog Like It, which was kind of off Peter Kay's car share, where his mum said, I've never known wind like it. So we just put fog
That's
in.
where it came from.
Yeah.
I thought it sounded like
from?
a catchphrase.
Yeah.
I couldn't put my finger on it.
Then Better Believe, which is off a R&B track, where it just shouts Better Believe in the middle of it. Next week's new one. My Good Chaise Long, which is a Derry Girls reference.
But obviously Evil Dead as well.
Yes.
Where's that come from? No.
Yeah.
So big horror fans, maybe?
Yes, that's Mick, who's like a really big, like sort of B-movie horror fan.
Yeah.
So we've named all our dippers still off of horror films. We managed to keep that going, so that's how it started off. So we've got...
Oh, you know what? I've not even put that together.
Yeah.
Blood Machines.
Blood Machines, Faculty, Hills Have Eyes. We just sort of saw everyone was doing Christmas beers, and there's this sort of drag up till Christmas for breweries where festivals end. There's no real launches, there's no real collabs, and we're like, no one's doing anything on Halloween. And Halloween's getting bigger and bigger every year. Like it's becoming more Americanized, where it's huge in America, and we don't want to do a pumpkin beer because no one cares about it in the UK. So
I'd have one.
yeah,
You're the one person I've ever met who wants more pumpkin beer. So
I'd take it.
so we're like, let's do a Halloween series, and and again we stuck to it. It's our only national tap takeover of the year. Rather than trying to do like 5 national tap takeovers and diluting it, we just do one based around Evil Dead. And this year we're trying to do the launch in the UK and 2 other countries, maybe 3.
Ooh.
But logistically, we've got to see how it's going to work.
How are you doing the Evil Dead series then? Is it still going to be a sour dipper?
Yeah, sour dipper and imperial stout.
That was Imperial Stout, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So that's going to be the theme. And then it's whatever you want to do with the club.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and try and pick people for each style. I think the sour lends itself to going blood red for Halloween. And there's years you can still play around with red colours and get that, or even green, I guess, or anything Halloween-y.
Yeah.
Army Darkness lends itself to a stout, and there's so much you can do with imperial stouts. So actually, it's more the dipper. We've kept the same Evil Dead 2 recipe now for like 3 or 4 years. So it's whether do we start to mix.
So it's always the same then?
Yeah.
Generally,
So we're considering whether do we mix up hops or hop products we can play around with no problem, but do we actually mix them up? But I guess it's like the one launch per year. It's not like it's a core beer. So
I suppose the last thing that we wanted to touch upon is the community that you've built up around Rivington. Tell us a little bit about that.
The community was quite a big thing. One of the reasons opening out here was that before I moved back here, I was living in Manchester and was drinking in Chorley in Manchester with like Dulcimer and a few of those places when Beer Off Bottle Shop first opened. But there's nothing around here. So, and as time's gone on, we quickly realised, sunny summer's day, we've got no issue filling it because we've got that view. It's a nice space, but winter's a very different proposition when it's like windy, sideways rain, 4 degrees. Like, how do you get people up here to come out the day? So we've worked on quite a few community things. So we started what we called Friends of the Tap, which is like a subscription one. So you get early access to tickets at festivals, you get discounted drinks, you get a birthday beer, you get like a weekly newsletter. So again, it's seeing more of like the regulars coming in more often. We have a cycle club, a run club, a walking club as well. So all things to sort of boost the community. But then also, I think we're quite active as a brewery, so also to have more, appreciate that drinking too much beer is not the best thing for you. So doing stuff
I was about to say,
outside of it
it's
as
nice
well.
that you've got activities in there that don't just revolve around let's get shit-faced and pizza
exactly.
and beer.
We've actually found the run club, ironically, our highest numbers are in like November, where it is bleak weather, they've got head torches on. You come home from work, it's dark and grey, and actually 60 people meet up, go from the woods and tell wherever they have a beer and a catch up afterwards. And it's what pubs were built around, wasn't it? That sense of community coming back that, okay, I'm not just sat at home watching reality TV, waiting for Christmas to come. I'm actually making the most of November. Then it's similar in January, we get big numbers as well. So
Just to wrap up, I mean, one of the things that original memory that you had, well, that original point that you made where you were just out in America, you were kayaking or wherever it was, and then immediately going for a beer, got all these outdoor activities. You've actually ended up building somewhere over here in the UK, which you can pretty much do exactly that because you've got the lake over there.
As soon as we get access to that and we can start putting tubes on the reservoir, then we've done it, we've achieved it.
I'll probably move up here, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. Deal.
But I mean, it just goes to show you've taken that kind of influence that you found while you're over there, and you've managed to kind of somehow import it and build it from British countryside and a farm. Yeah. And just one vision, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
There's a lot of serendipity, I think, in your story as well. So because you had a lot of adversity, as you said, but alongside that was always this thing that you were going to end up here in some capacity, but you've made the most of it, you know. And you said your future plans are just to improve on your beers, steady this out, and then just sort of maintain that quality of life. And I think, you know, keep this up, man.
Thank you. I think we've always just sort of been clear on that, we've been clear with everyone what sort of our end goal is. It hasn't been big expansion, it hasn't been like a sellout, it hasn't been, but it's, you know, just making the best we can. And it's often been like slow progress in terms of new infrastructure, or, you know, we go and see these amazing sites with incredible £1 million kits, and we don't have that, but we're still sort of going to improve what we have and keep trying to improve everything we do.
Love it, mate. Love it.
Thank you.
Stuff.